lives, but some in the Zionist project were even willing to sacrifice their own. From 1951 to 1952, there was a series of bombings in Baghdad, Iraq, against synagogues and other Jewish targets, causing dozens of casualties. A group called the Zionist Underground was found responsible by the pro-Western Iraqi government. This is confirmed by former CIA officer Wilbur Crane Eveland, writing, "In an attempt to portray the Iraqis as anti-American and to terrorize the Jews, the Zionists planted bombs in the U.S. Information Service Library and in the synagogues. Soon, leaflets began to appear urging Jews to flee to Israel. Most of the world believed reports that Arab terrorism had motivated the flight of the Iraqi Jews, whom the Zionists had rescued, really just in order to increase Israel's Jewish population." In 1954, a similar operation was carried out by the Israeli government itself, this time for regional ambitions in Egypt. They orchestrated a number of bombings on U.S. and British civilian targets, planning to blame Arabs and communists. Throughout the 1950s, Israeli military power had grown quite formidable, armed primarily by France. It dutifully used these weapons to aid French and British imperialism, including the invasion of Egypt to try to topple pan-Arab president Gamal Nasser in 1956. But as Israel ran away in defeat, like a petulant child, it demolished any building it could along the way. This earned the eye of the U.S. empire. Recognizing Israel's value against nationalist movements like Nasser's, the U.S. became its main military financier and pledged its own military to protect Israel. By 1967, Israel was a far stronger military machine, with monstrous American forces standing behind it. But even Israel's main ally was not safe from its brutal belligerents. That year, unmarked Israeli warplanes and torpedo boats aggressively attacked a U.S. Navy ship in international waters off the coast of Egypt. The relentless barrage on the USS Liberty, which had an American flag raised high, lasted for an entire 2 hours. 34 people were killed and 174 wounded. According to an NSA report, U.S. officials believed it was impossible for this to be a mistake, and that Israel intended to sink their ship and blame it on Egypt to goad the U.S. into invading. The attack was part of another ambitious land grab by Israel in what became known as the Six-Day War, the next chapter of Zionist expansion. Israel launched surprise attacks on Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. It invaded all of Palestine's remaining 22% of land. The official rationale for this major act of aggression was one of preemption, that the Jewish population in Israel was on the verge of being killed en masse by the Arab countries surrounding them. Many Israeli officials acknowledged that it was just propaganda, including top military commander during the war, General Mattiyahu Peled, who was quoted in Haaretz admitting, "The thesis that the danger of genocide was hanging over us in June 1967 and that Israel was fighting for its physical existence is only a bluff." The colonial superpower charged at lightning speed, showering the land with napalm. In less than a week, close to 40,000 Arabs were killed, many of them civilians in crowded cities that were firebombed and overrun by Israeli tanks. By contrast, under 800 Israeli soldiers were killed, along with 20 civilians. At the end of those 6 days, a new map emerged, closer to the greater Israel that the Zionists had always dreamed about. They conquered the Sinai Peninsula of Egypt, the Golan Heights of Syria, and the rest of Palestine. Another 300,000 Palestinians were made refugees during that short time. Many of them had already been made refugees once before, during the Nakba. While they had to ultimately return the Sinai to Egypt, the territory that Israel seized in this war remains under their control today. The map shows the existence of Palestinian territory. All of it is still subject to Israeli military occupation and law. Hundreds more legal settlements have also chewed holes in the map, reducing actual Palestinian landmass to almost nothing. While the occupation that continues today is presented as simply security measures to protect the Israeli state from terrorism, it is the same expansion and conquest that's marked the last century. In the face of unimaginable brutality all of these years, the Palestinian people have carried out their most powerful tool of resistance, continuing to exist, keeping their roots firmly planted in the land, where every possible weapon is used to expel them. And they've shown that heroic resilience will never die.